everyone, my name is Shira Moskovitz, and I'm a special education teacher and expert here with Understood. Thank you so much for joining this Facebook Live. We're going to discuss all things dyslexia today, from diagnosing to developing a plan for home and communicating that plan to teachers. Dyslexia can be diagnosed at any age. There are adults who go through their entire schooling without ever discovering that they have dyslexia. We know this is an important topic that many of you are experiencing and have some questions about. While some of you are still logging on, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a special education teacher in a New York City public school and have been teaching children with learning and thinking differences for over a decade. I'm also an Orton Gillingham certified teacher, which is a program designed to help children with dyslexia learn how to read, but it has been found to help all students learn how to read. Not only do I teach students these methods, but I also teach teachers how to support their students with Orton Gillingham. I have 2 children of my own, and I host 2 groups on the Wonder by Understood app. One is Ask an Expert, Dyslexia, Reading, and Math, and a group for New York City parents. Help me get an idea of who is here today so I can make this live the best for you. Hit the like button if you're a parent who is here because your child has dyslexia, or you think your child or loved one does have dyslexia, and hit the heart button if you're an adult looking for strategies to help manage your dyslexia, or you think that you might have dyslexia, but you're not sure. Great. There's been a lot more discussion about dyslexia in the past few years, but it remains relatively misunderstood. Dyslexia is a specific learning difference that affects one's ability to read, write, and spell. It's characterized by its inconsistency. Many people with dyslexia are very bright, and their challenges with reading and writing don't seem to match their other abilities. It's common for dyslexia to go unnoticed or misdiagnosed because someone is so bright and it's assumed that they're not trying hard enough. Additionally, many people with dyslexia also have ADHD. Because dyslexia is so hard to identify, since its symptoms can be misattributed to ADHD's inability to focus. Lastly, because dyslexics tend to be smart, they develop coping mechanisms to deal with their challenges in reading and writing, and that people around them might not even realize that they're struggling. If you think that you or your child has dyslexia, there are certain things to look for. In a preschool-age child, we're looking for signs like mispronouncing words like aminal instead of animal, struggling to name familiar objects and use general words like stuff or thing instead, having a hard time learning nursery rhymes or song lyrics that rhyme, having difficulty remembering and following steps with multiple directions. And for a child between kindergarten and 2nd grade, we're looking for signs like having trouble learning letter names and remembering the sounds that they make, often confusing letters that look similar like B, D, P, and Q, or sound similar like F and V, B and P, or D and T, struggling to read familiar words like cat, especially if there aren't pictures on the page, substituting words when reading aloud, like saying house when the story actually says home, having trouble separating the individual sounds in words or blending sounds together to make a word, and having trouble with spelling. For a child between 3rd and 5th grade, we're looking for signs like confusing or skipping small words like for or of when they're reading aloud, having trouble sounding out new words, having trouble quickly recognizing common words that are often called sight words, struggling to explain what happened in a story or answering questions about key details, poor spelling, avoiding reading at all when possible, or getting frustrated and upset when reading. For a student in middle school, high school, or an adult, we're looking for signs like reading slowly or leaving out small words and parts of longer words when they're reading out loud, struggling to remember common abbreviations, especially jargon that we use on social media, often searching for words or using substitutes like gate instead of fence, often not getting the joke or having trouble understanding idioms and puns, taking a long time to complete reading assignments, and having an easier time answering questions about text if it's read out loud. If you or your loved one have a few of these signs, the next step is to get a diagnosis. A full evaluation can be done either at school or privately. Several types of professionals can assess dyslexia, including school psychologists, clinical psychologists, and neuropsychologists. Evaluators give dyslexia tests. Other areas will also be tested to see where any weaknesses are. School evaluations are free. Private ones can be very expensive. There are some ways to get them for free. There are often school psychology programs at local universities that have clinics where students train. Adults who have finished high school but still have trouble reading can get diagnoses too. Often this happens when parents have a child with dyslexia. They might wonder, do I have dyslexia too? Those same specialists can assess adults as well. If you're looking for a dyslexia specialist in your area, there are several resources you can use. The Learning Disabilities Association of America, local colleges' psychology departments with PhD programs, university-affiliated hospitals, and community mental health centers might be able to help. An evaluation can be expensive. Some insurance plans cover it, but many don't. These kinds of assessments are sometimes offered by the university psychology departments on a sliding scale. Sometimes local mental health clinics do this too. Many parents have shared resources and personal experiences about getting evaluation on the Wonder app. So I hope you join us and share yours. So what can you do after you get a diagnosis? Many parents worry that their child won't be able to read once they're diagnosed with dyslexia. This is not true at all. People with dyslexia use different parts of their brain to read and understand. They might need different strategies to learn these skills, but they can do it. This is where an IEP, an individualized education plan, comes into play at school or workplace accommodations for an adult. Some accommodations include use of multisensory structured literacy approach to support reading and comprehension, such as Orrin Gillingham, provided by a trained teacher. Offer access to audiobooks and assistive technologies such as reading pens or text-to-speech and speech-to-text software on a personal device to assist with reading and writing tasks. Pre-teach new concepts and terminology before introducing them in a class or work task. Utilize amplified instruction with sound field systems to enhance the clarity of spoken instructions and facilitate auditory processing. Display visual schedules and verbally communicate them to aid in task organization and time management. Provide colored strips or bookmarks to help focus on lines of text when reading. Allow for additional time when reading and writing is required. Provide multiple opportunities to review and process important information from books, articles, or work documents and reports. Offer typed notes or outlines of lessons or work meetings and presentations to support note-taking. Utilize organizers to help them follow along during lessons, tasks, or projects. Develop a glossary of relevant content terms and jargon for easy reference. Use visual aids or audio to support them comprehending written materials presented during meetings. Give clear and step-by-step instructions for tasks, reading them out loud. Simplify directions using keywords to highlight the most important steps or ideas. Highlight keywords and essential information on worksheets or documents to guide reading and understanding. Regularly check in with them to ensure they comprehend instructions and can repeat them back accurately. Provide examples of completed work as a model for them to follow. Supply rubrics that describe the criteria for successful completion of assignments or projects. Assist them to break down complex assignments into smaller, manageable steps. Offer self-monitoring checklists and guiding questions to support reading comprehension and task completion. Evaluate and grade them based on their mastery of content rather than focusing on factors like spelling or reading fluency. Allow them to demonstrate their understanding through various means, such as oral reports, posters, or video presentations. Provide different formats for test questions like verbal answers or circling responses instead of filling in the blank. Offer sentence starters to assist them initiating written response. Allowing them to extend time for taking tests or completing assignments. Provide a quiet and distraction-free space for employees to do tasks or students to take tests. And these and so many more accommodations we discuss on the Wonder app. So again, I hope you join us in the discussion. So let's take some questions from the community and see what can be done to help when they're 18 or older. So students who are in college or outside of school can be evaluated by private institutions. You can talk to your doctor, find those local universities that might offer those evaluations. And then what can be done if they do receive a diagnosis? Those accommodations that we discussed don't only apply in school. The same way that you might be reading a text in class and needing to respond to that, someone who's working as an adult may need to read something, a work email, a work document, and those accommodations still apply. Getting things read out loud, providing text to speech and speech to text, having a quiet space to work, among so many other things. Our Wonder community, we don't just discuss for young children, we discuss from kindergarten all the way through adulthood how to support. And the community really comes up with ideas that many of us haven't heard before, and it's an amazing place. Another question is, how can I advocate for my child's needs at school? So you should know that you're an equal member of the committee when drafting your child's IEP. Don't accept no for an answer, just ask why. Sometimes there are very good reasons why certain accommodations can't be provided in a way that you're suggesting, but instead of dismissing your concerns, the school representative should be able to answer why they're suggesting something different. You can know that assistive technology can help many students with dyslexia. Many write assistive technology off as a crutch, and they don't want to offer it because they're worried that the child will never learn to develop the same skills in reading and writing independently. And this is inaccurate. Providing support will not prevent a child from wanting to learn to read and write. And if anything, it will help them. It'll have the opposite effect because they'll feel confident and comfortable engaging in these areas, whereas otherwise they might be so self-conscious and they'll avoid them altogether. Second, these tools can support learning how to read and write rather than the opposite. What advice do you have about getting an IEP or a 504 plan? So I definitely recommend it. An IEP and 504 do slightly different things. And again, if you join our Wonder community, you can find out a lot more about that. But approaching your school with your concerns will start that process. And you, as part of the special education committee, will determine what is best for your child, whether your child needs an IEP or a 504 plan, and you'll make sure that the accommodations that your child needs are supported. How can I help my incoming third grader improve her reading? She has an IEP, but we want to provide additional support. That's a great question. There's so much that you can do for your child at home. Providing reading opportunities where you read out loud, where they read to you, where you engage in audiobooks, where you provide texts that are high interest, that may look more like a comic book or a graphic novel, are great ways to start continuously reading and encouraging them in whatever the reading is, whether you can read a page, a word, a sentence, a paragraph, or a whole chapter. All reading should be celebrated. What are some early warning signs of dyslexia? Some of them might look different for every child, but you want to notice a couple of warning signs, like trouble with letter sounds, trouble with rhyming, mispronouncing words. If your child just says aminal instead of animal but doesn't have any other warning signs, I wouldn't be so concerned. But if you're noticing a couple of issues that stack on top of each other, that's when it becomes a warning sign and you want to talk to your doctor or your school-based education team. Can we talk about a double diagnosis with ADHD and dyslexia? Yes, it is very common. They have some similar symptoms, whereas a child with ADHD may have trouble focusing and a child with dyslexia may have trouble reading, but because trouble focusing on a book looks like trouble reading, it's sometimes hard to tell the difference. So you want to make sure that you're advocating for your child if you think that there might be more than just dyslexia or more than just ADHD. Again, that's where you being an equal part of your education committee when writing the IEP comes into play. If you have concerns, they should be addressed. Your child should be evaluated. And if someone says no, or let's wait and see, you don't need to wait and see. If this is something you have a concern about, they should be able to evaluate it and address it. What do you do when the child still reverts to word memorization instead of phonics? Word memorization isn't bad if it's happening in tandem with. So every time your child sees a new word, you're going to want to help them with the tools so that they can read independently. And that's where the sounding out and the multisensory strategies come into play. But once they've memorized it, that's okay. If they can look at a word and sound and just say it without having to sound it out, that's great. It's that you want them to be able to utilize both strategies when appropriate. So if you've enjoyed this conversation today, these are the types of interactions we have with our groups in the Wonder app, where we answer your specific questions on different topics as they relate to learning and thinking differences, like dyslexia. For those of you who would like to join, we've shared the link throughout this discussion, and I hope to see you there.